Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the psychological thriller films from 2024, titled The Surfer. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens with a middle-aged man, who's just called the Surfer, and his son arriving at a beautiful coast of Australia. The man is giving a motivational speech, using surfing as a metaphor for life, but his son is visibly annoyed that he had to skip school for this. The Surfer then speaks with his real estate agent, claiming he's at Luna Bay, and wants his son to see the house. But to his disappointment, the agent informs him that another family is interested in the property, and is offering significantly more money. The Surfer isn't ready to give up at any cost, so the agent urges him to raise another 100 grand, and gives him 48 hours. After hanging up the call, the Surfer and his son grab their surfboards, and head to the beach. The father seems pretty excited, and he tells his son that he has a big surprise for him. But just as they are about to jump into the water, a local guy named Pitbull appears, and angrily declares that they're not permitted to surf here, and it's only for locals. The Surfer reveals that he grew up in this place, but Pitbull becomes more aggressive, repeatedly ordering them to leave. Upon seeing them arguing, the local people's leader, Scally, arrives, and speaks privately with the Surfer. He tells the Surfer to forget this place, warning that it's not safe, and that he's doing them a favor by giving this advice.
But you gotta know when to back down, or it could get a whole lot worse.
This leaves the Surfer deeply disappointed, and he has no choice but to walk away from there. Later, in the car, he reveals to his son that he's buying a house nearby, one that belonged to his father and where he grew up. The Surfer recalls his childhood memories, and describes how precious this place is to him, but his son shows no interest and just wants to go home. In the following scene, we see the Surfer returning to the coast, but this time alone. He calls his broker, and urgently requests more money because the price of the house he wanted has increased. The broker suggests buying another property, but the Surfer refuses to give up, and claims he has worked his entire life just to get back here. Not long after, an old homeless man, called the Bum, appears and hands a poster of his missing dog to the Surfer. The latter says he's not from here and hasn't seen the dog, so the old man just warns him to be careful around here. Moments later, the Surfer notices several local boys approaching the Bum and harassing him. They physically abuse the old man while mocking and laughing. This makes the Surfer feel very bad, and the boys don't waste the opportunity to insult him as well before finally walking away. Later that night, the Surfer sits alone in his car when he gets a call from his estranged wife. She wonders where he is, and he excitedly admits he has come to buy his old house, which is finally up for sale. But the uninterested wife urges him to sign the divorce papers quickly, revealing that she's getting married to her boyfriend, and is pregnant. This news hits the man like a ton of bricks, but he tries to hide his disappointment. After hanging up, he recalls his childhood self at the beach, realizing the house is the only thing left that might bring him a shred of happiness. Sometime later, the Surfer notices some local teens arrive to party at the beach. A delivery boy also soon shows up with piles of pizzas for the partygoers, and the Surfer requests to buy one. But the moment the delivery guy learns he isn't local, he becomes rude and ends up charging $100 for a pizza. Afterward, the Surfer goes to get some water, but when he returns to his car, he's shocked to see his pizza tossed onto the ground. He then spots some teens running off in the distance while carrying his surfboard. Furious, the Surfer storms down to the beach, where he confronts the partygoers and demands his surfboard back. But one of the boys, Blondie, immediately lunges at him and tries to beat him down. After a brief fight, the Surfer realizes he can't win against these people, so he walks away. When he returns to his car, he immediately calls the local police to report the theft and assault. The next morning, he is startled awake by a cop. The Surfer quickly explains what happened last night, and suggests that they confront those goons together. However, the cop suddenly tells him to stay here, and he'll talk to them alone. After the cop leaves, the suspicious Surfer approaches the Bum, and requests to borrow his binoculars. The old man demands his expensive sunglasses in exchange, which the Surfer reluctantly hands over. Afterward, the Surfer uses the binoculars to scan the beach and realizes the cop is actually Scally's friend. The bum informs him that Scally's grandfather stole most of the land here, and now the trust fund Brett acts like he's king of this place. The bum also reveals that his son, Jay, once used to surf around here, and shows a shark tooth necklace he won in a surfing contest. But Scally's gang ended up taking him, and he's certain they killed his dog too. Upon hearing all of this, the surfer is stunned, and rushes to the beach, where he spots his surfboard hanging on Scally's cabin. He demands it back, but the cop unexpectedly insists the board belongs to Scally, and has been there as long as he can remember. The surfer tries to protest, but the cop orders him to return to his car and wait for him. Afterward, the surfer confronts the cop about the harassment of the local goons, including the fact that they indulge in illegal drugs. But the cop reveals that Scally's family has put a lot of money into this community, and if he wants to blow off steam once in a while, he can. The cop then orders the surfer to stop bothering these locals, and leave the area immediately. After the cop leaves, the surfer heads to the nearby washroom, where he puts down his coat, and removes his shoes. He then enters a stall to relieve himself, but suddenly notices someone's presence outside. He thinks it's the troublemakers and quickly hides, but it just turns out to be the bum. Upon exiting the stall, the surfer is frustrated to realize that the bum stole his coat and shoes and ran away. He then heads outside and notices the local boys scribbling bad words on his car. While angrily yelling at them, he accidentally steps on shattered glass and injures his foot. The boys run off, while the surfer returns to his car and hastily bandages the wound. His frustration grows when he realizes the car battery is also dead. Luckily, he comes across a female photographer who isn't from around here. She kindly helps him charge the battery, and snaps some pictures of him. They then open up about their lives, and the surfer reveals he used to live here until his dad passed away. After that, he moved to America with his mom, leaving everything behind. Sometime later, the surfer heads to a nearby store to buy a coffee, but when he tries to pay, his phone suddenly dies. He asks the store owner to charge it and promises to pay afterward, but the guy demands his watch as a deposit. The stunned surfer explains that his phone is already a deposit, and the watch was a gift from his dad. But the owner still refuses to cooperate, prompting the surfer to reluctantly give his watch. As he heads back to his car, another local intentionally knocks all his coffee into his face and curses at him. A while later, the surfer returns to the store, only to discover that it is now closed, which worries him. He fortunately discovers a coin in his car, and uses it to call his finance company from a payphone. He leaves a message for his broker, asking him to call back on this payphone for further communication. That evening, the surfer heads to the beach and peeks into the cabin, where Scally is performing a cult-like ritual to welcome Blondie into his tribe. Scally is seen encouraging the men to reconnect with their alpha instincts, and unleash their animalistic side. His motto is that one must suffer before they are allowed to surf. The goons then begin chanting, "Suffer, surfer," as Scally burns a metal stake in the fire and stamps it into Blondie's body. Horrified, the surfer decides to quickly take this chance to get back his surfboard, but he's unexpectedly attacked by a dog there, and upon hearing the noise, the locals also come after him. The surfer throws a medal at them, and manages to run away. After some time, they still come looking for him, so he hides behind some bushes, where he spends the entire night. The next morning, he wakes up, and is shocked to see that his car has vanished. Not long after, the same cop shows up, so the surfer frantically reveals that they stole his car last night. But the cop only scolds him for not leaving sooner, and points to the bum's old car, insisting his vehicle is still here. The shocked surfer insists he drives a Lexus, but the officer just laughs at him and orders him to leave this place immediately. After the cop departs, the surfer heads to his dad's old house, where he notices his real estate agent showing the place to another family. The surfer desperately asks for some time, and insists he will buy the house, but the agent pretends like he doesn't know him. He calls the surfer a homeless man, and demands that he get off the property. Just then, the surfer notices that the store is open and rushes up to the owner to claim his belongings. However, the store owner acts clueless, saying he has no idea what he's talking about. He's wearing the same watch, and he claims his father gave it to him. Fed up with the situation, the surfer tries to go to the payphone, but he's stopped by some boys who begin harassing him. Just then, the payphone rings, and the surfer assumes it's his broker. but the punks only agree to let him through if he gives them his ring, so the surfer is forced to comply. Unfortunately, when he gets to the payphone, he discovers that the receiver has been cut off and that the phone is not actually ringing. This sends the poor guy over the edge. He starts crying as everyone around him begins laughing and mocking his miserable state. Left without hope, he sits in the bum's car to rest, where he finds Jay's shark tooth necklace, and keeps it for himself. He begins to feel increasingly dehydrated and hungry, but has no money to feed himself. The surfer then heads to the washroom, where he drinks the dirty water, and almost vomits. When he returns to the car, Scally is waiting for him with food and drinks. He asks him to eat and leave this place for good, but the surfer refuses to give up. Here, Scally admits he remembers the surfer from childhood, and hasn't forgotten how his dad died in the ocean. The surfer insists it was an accident, but Scally drops a shocking revelation, saying that the old man deliberately took his own life. To make matters worse, Scally convinces him that he's actually a homeless guy, who has been living in this beat-up car for a long time. He argues that if the surfer had a family, he would have a ring, and they would have checked up on him since it's Christmas time. He starts messing with the surfer, and urges him to consider that maybe he's starting to lose his mind, just like his dad. The next day, the weak surfer tries to find any food in the trash cans, but to no avail. He then notices some spilled soda on the ground and begins to drink it like an animal. He also grabs a dead mouse to eat for later, and then steals birds' eggs. Afterward, the surfer approaches several people, and requests their phones so he can call his broker. But they all see him as a crazy homeless man and ignore him. At one point, he finally feels hopeful when he notices the same photographer he met a few days ago. He approaches her, and asks if she remembers the car he was driving. And so, the woman checks her camera, and shows him pictures of him posing in front of a Lexus, which makes him realize that he's not insane. He then uses her phone to call the broker, but the latter reveals that all he could arrange was 50 grand. The surfer breaks down in tears, as he realizes his dream of buying the house is shattered, and all his suffering has been for nothing. In a fit of rage, the surfer grabs a signboard, and proceeds to the beach, where he attacks Pitbull. The two men get into a violent fight, but the surfer eventually gains the upper hand. He brutally injures Pitbull, and even tries to shove the mouse into his mouth. Meanwhile, Scally's gang notices them, but for some reason, they're amused. The surfer is almost about to kill Pitbull by drowning him, until Scally finally intervenes. He states that before they surf, they must suffer, and then shoves the surfer's face into the water. Afterward, the gang takes the surfer inside the cabin, where they inject him with a drug. The man is distraught, because he lost the house because he didn't have enough money. But Scally tells him not to worry, as Pitbull, who is a bank manager, will help him. The surfer mentions there is another bidder, but the agent suddenly shows up and congratulates him on the new house. It turns out Scally knew he was going for the house, and all these people were just messing with him to toughen him up. In the evening, the gang again performs a cult-like ritual, and Scally presses a hot metal stake against the surfer's body to officially welcome him into the tribe. The surfer then takes drugs with them, and surrenders to the chaotic thrill of the night. The next day, as he's hanging out with his new friends, he asks Scally about Jay, and where he is now. Scally initially pretends not to know, but when the surfer presses him, he finally admits that Jay was a wild kid who died after cracking his skull on a curb while high on drugs. However, the bum thinks Scally killed him, which is why he hates him. The surfer then asks if he killed the dog, and Scally doesn't deny it. This horrifies the surfer, but he doesn't dwell on it much, as he's just happy that he can finally surf and buy his dream house. Next, he grabs his surfboard and heads to the water, but Scally stops him, saying he has to pass one last test to finally surf. Scally then takes him to the bum's car, and shockingly orders him to burn it down. The surfer hesitates, realizing this is Bum's home, and he doesn't have anything else. But Scally tries to persuade him by saying once he does this, the ocean will be his, and he can move here and do anything. The other goons also start chanting suffer, so the surfer finally succumbs to the pressure, and sets the car on fire. After this brutal act, Scally finally accepts him as part of the tribe, right when the surfer's son shows up. The surfer urgently asks him to leave, But the boy is worried that his dad has been missing for days, and is now hanging out with these goons. Scally informs him they're now part of the community, and invites them both to surf together. The boy hesitates, but Surfer asks him to go with them, while he heads to the car to get something. All of a sudden, the bum, who had been gone for days, finally shows up. He is distraught to see his car burning and lets out a piercing scream. And so, he runs toward the beach, so a panicked Surfer also follows him. The old man immediately confronts the goons, blaming them for his suffering. To everyone's shock, the bum pulls out a loaded gun, and threatens to kill them if they move. This prompts the goons to finally back down and obey his orders. Following this, the bum forces all the men to kneel on the beach, facing the crashing ocean. He presses the gun close to Pitbull's side, and orders him to bark, which the latter obliges. The bum then lets all the other men leave, but forces Scally, the Surfer, and his son to stay. He expresses his frustration, and accuses the Surfer of selling his soul to become one of the bad guys. Now, the Surfer admits that he has realized his mistake, and says he's decided not to purchase the house. He understands the old man's pain, and pleads with him to at least let his son go. The Surfer then hands him Jay's shark tooth necklace, and states that all he wants is to take his son surfing. Upon seeing the necklace, the bum grows emotional, and he finally lets the father and son go. They immediately rush into the ocean, and begin surfing together, finding solace in the waves. Meanwhile, the bum finally pulls the trigger and ends Scally's life. He then faces the ocean, and takes a deep breath before shooting himself as well. The movie ends with the bum collapsing lifeless on the sand, as the stunned Surfer is haunted by the memory of finding his father's body washed ashore on that very same beach. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.